So welcome again to this session, a regular session of graduates of the ISO 20700 training programs that I facilitate. So it's a pleasure to see you all again. Some of you I haven't seen because you've participated through the LMS version. And this is an opportunity for us to share experiences, to ask questions, and to do all of those kinds of things that we're not able to do in a virtual environment when you're taking it from LMS. The LMS has great advantages. You can take it at your own time speed, but it doesn't have that ability to exchange information face to face with other management consultants. So this is intended to do that. So in terms of our session today, there's a few things I wanted to cover off. The first one is right after this intro, I'll ask you to each introduce yourselves. We're a small enough group, so let's get to know each other a little bit. So just an introduction of your name, your practice, your specialty, and perhaps a couple of words of your thoughts on ISO 20700. Second, there's been some update to the materials. Those of you that attended the last session would have received them already, but I'm going to, I'll distribute those again today just to let you know what they are. It's only to the checklists themselves. The rest of the documents have been the same. Item number 3 will be talking about a little bit about ISO 20700. So there's been a lot of advancements in the availability of the LMS version of this course. So I want to tell you about that. There's some content that's been updated. So because you took the course and we're continually improving the course, you may not have seen some of the content. So I just want to brief you on what's happening there and get your insight on some future content that I'm thinking of developing. Sharing stories. So I thought it might be fun, depending on how much time we have left, any volunteers that want to share stories about using ISO or not using it, and just helping us all share experiences along those lines. 6 video endorsements. I'll show you. We've been very fortunate. The evaluations for the course average above 9 for both recommendations and for the quality of the course. So thank you for that. And we have a lot of endorsements, but no video endorsements. So I want to talk with you about that. And then just a closing and any final questions that you might have. So to start off, then let's just do those introductions and roundtable. So we'll just start with the top of my screen. Richard, that will be you. So it's just your name, your practice, what your specialty is, and any words that you might want to say about ISO 20700 and that experience.
Yeah, Richard Kitney. I strategic planning and operations and high performance organizational design has been what I've done over the years, and I did spend time building one of Canada's ISO registrars in the early days and putting together the whole framework for dealing with ISO in the country federally. And really was always was pleased when we finally got around to one for the consulting universe and taken the course and obviously recommend it to colleagues that I meet, and I have tended to, in the last number of years, sort of actually concentrate on consulting to consulting, and so this has been very relevant. Yeah.
Okay, great. And where are you based, Richard? I should have asked that question.
In Clarkson, Mississauga.
Okay, great. Thank you. My face is next up on the screen, so I should also introduce myself because some of you only met me through the video recorded version. So my practice is in organization performance. I help executives, particularly CEOs, leverage their success to the next level, based in Ottawa. And I've really enjoyed putting the ISO 20700 standard into practice by helping management consultants use the checklist. So, and it's helped me, of course, in my practice, in my own uses. So I can tell one of my stories too when we get to storytelling time. Wayne, over to you.
I'm going to go ahead and do Aaron and I both. As you can see, we're from the same business. We're Aaron and Wayne Trails. We're the owners of EMK Business Consulting and Analysis. We specialize in management and operational consulting and educational consulting. And we both did the ISO 20700. We got a lot out of that, and that kind of I'll talk about that later on when we go back to the open discussion. But Dwight, thank you for doing the class, and this is a really good, helped us out a lot.
Wayne was one of the first LMS participants in the US when the US took a contract for delivery of that, and then gave us a great referral, who is Aaron. So let's move to you next, Aaron.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Aaron. Wayne and I are in EMK, so we do operational and management consulting. Like you said, we do a lot with educational and small micro businesses to try to help them improve on the profit and everything like that. But like Wayne said, we both did ISO pretty early on, and it's helped us a lot in what steps we need to take in order to make sure we're doing everything we can for our customer at that point. So we appreciate that a lot, Dwight. Thank you for that.
Okay, thanks very much. Wes, over to you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Wes Patterson with Patterson Consulting, and our main focus is looking through a lens of wellness. And so a lot of organizational wellness. We've just recently got into a joint venture to also bring real-time operational intelligence to the Canadian and hopefully North American marketplace. And so just so you know, Dwight, you actually do have a video shout out, because when I was on the MAS webinar, I did a shout out for the ISO. So
Good man.
but yeah, so I use it a lot, especially with when I do the smaller, medium-sized projects.
Mhm.
I find it is very good, especially when you go back to this is what we agreed on.
Yes, exactly. And you're based in?
In Medicine Hat, Alberta.
Yeah. And Steve, next, over to you.
Hi, I'm Steve Tower. I'm in Toronto. I focus on contingency planning. So that encompasses risk management, incident response, emergency response, business continuity, and disaster recovery. I love this standard. I think it is a useful tool that I've used for improving my contracting and proposal development for clients, making sure that I've covered all the bases with them. And I think it intuitively fits well for those of us who have gone through PMP certification and are project managers, and it does also cover a lot of that material too. So it's just a synergistic fit.
Perfect. Thank you. And your location, Steve?
Yeah, Toronto.
Toronto. Perfect. Toronto, Mississauga here. Al, over to you.
Oh, thanks. I'm Al Thibault. I have a one-man show here in Regina, Saskatchewan. And I guess I just looked it up in 2019 when I took my 2700 training. Like Steve, I use it mostly as a checklist. And in my practice, I've been doing technical strategic planning for quite some time, but I've pivoted to focusing more on energy management, clean energy. So as Dwight knows, because he helped present it, our team won a Constantness Award in 2022 for a clean coal project, and I'm just finishing up my PhD in energy engineering at University of North Dakota, so plan to do that more. The other thing with 2700 that, so with Lauren Boyle, who's the CMC Saskatchewan president, he and I, we basically decided to be the sponsors for all new CMC candidates in Saskatchewan. And the question of how do you actually do business comes up a lot with the new CMCs, and so we always refer them to the 2700 standard. At some point when I get a minute, I'll get a hold of Marcia Beeson and see what we can do in Canada about making sure that 2700 is as part of the introductory material for new CMCs coming in. I think that would be hugely valuable.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much, Al.
Okay.
Norma, welcome.
hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, because I'm having some challenges with my computer, the sound and the video. I am from beautiful Barbados, and thank you very much, Dwight, for inviting me. For those of you who, well, Dwight has been working along with our Caribbean IMC for many years, and we are delighted that we are working with him on developing an LMS system for the Caribbean audience. I'm a trainer and have been a trainer for a number of our ISO workshops, both virtual and in person. And I really appreciate what you all have been saying about the value of this for our clients as well as for ourselves in many different areas. My company is Catalyst Consultants, and I'm an independent management consultant, and really pleased to be here just listening in today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norma. Appreciate it.
And I may turn off my screen because it's just jumping.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Alexander, over to you, please, for an introduction.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. I'm coming from the other side of the big water. I'm in Skopje, Macedonia, in Europe. Good afternoon from here. In general, I'm doing management consulting in specialty to strategic management and strategic finance. Lately, basically in the access to finance in general, to SMEs and to startups. I'm, I think, one of two persons in my country that we have this certification or self-declaration of ISO. In general, we are still trying to somehow promote it and make it visible, using from time to time to clients. In general, maybe the checklist when beginning some of the client relationships. And also someone else mentioned earlier, we have discussed in our organization to somehow put the ISO standard in the CMC certification process, or the training for CMC, somehow to implement it also the ISO standard in order to somehow combine the two things. So good to be here with you today, and hopefully I can refresh some of the things that I know.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. Tim, welcome.
Hey, Dwight.
Nice to see you.
You as well. So is this, I joined a couple of minutes late, so is this just a quick intro?
Yeah, name,
All right.
practice, specialty, location, and what you thought about ISO.
Name, rank, and serial number.
Exactly,
All right.
yes.
Tim Kist, I'm from Winnipeg. I've had my own consulting practice for the past 11 years. Prior to that, I got my CMC a long time ago, working for a couple of the big firms, now PwC and now Deloitte. Focus of the practice is really helping bridge a better understanding of customer and alignment internally in an organization, and primarily using strategy and marketing concepts to build that strength. ISO, I was on the board, the national board, when this was first introduced, and was one of the first groups trained on it. And I hate to admit that I'm not as diligent in putting the certification on my email. And in fact, I'd like to believe it's rote memorization, that I'm doing all the right things to support the standard, but I don't formally do the things that I should be doing on this one. And talking to colleagues, it's one of the big questions, Dwight, is, they hear ISO 27000 and they go, hey, this is great. We're going to have a certified consulting process. Nope, hang on, folks. Let's take a step back. So I think there's an understanding gap that still needs to be dealt with. I applaud Al and Lauren for going through the process. And I think that based on a couple of the other comments I heard, making this mandatory and informing people, anytime you get broad acceptance and most importantly, use, I think it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's my short little soapbox for now. And Dwight and I know each other fairly well. We've worked on a project together, and gosh, that's got to be stretching back 5+ years now that we brought you to the wonderful city of Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's right.
Doors open for anyone else who wants to come. Dwight was smart. He came when it wasn't 1,000 below.
I'm born and raised in Saskatchewan, so I know not to go over there in the wintertime. Okay, excellent. Thanks, Tim. And let's flag that one. We're going to be having a roundtable on storytelling later, and I think use or not and formal use or not of the standard is a good topic. So let's come back to that when we have the discussion period. Looking at the screen, James, welcome from Dallas. James was instrumental in getting the LMS version of the program into the US because he invited me to do a webinar for Dallas Fort Worth chapter. So over to you, James. Perhaps your microphone is muted. It shows that you're not muted from this end. Yeah, something wrong with your microphone pickup, unfortunately, because I see you muting and unmuting from the system. So an equipment issue. So I'll leave you to work on that, and perhaps clicking on the microphone button, you might be able to choose another source. Somebody's dialed in by phone. I don't have a name there. Is that person able to say hi? No. Okay. So James, I see that you're unmuted now. Can we try that again? Okay, so while you're working on that, we'll just move on with the agenda. But I'd love to come back to you, James, and hear you say a few words. So we had a great training program with Dallas. It wasn't even a training program; it was a webinar on the future of consulting, and talking about certification and ISO 20700 and the difference between those two. And some of the executives from IMC USA were on the line, and they said, "Hey, this sounds like a really good program. Let's explore that." Now, moving on to the next agenda item, I just got to get my screen back here and share.
By the way, that number from telephone number is a Dallas code, so it may be James coming in two ways, and the phone or audio is muted, and that may be the explanation. I don't know who the other person would be from Dallas at this point.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Good detective work on the on the code. So there may be just something muted in the phone that's causing a problem. Introductions. Thank you very much for that. It was great to meet you. In terms of the update on the materials, there is a working group underway right now, and which I'm a member of, to look at the entire ICMCI checklist training. So they've been going with a fine-tooth comb through this after having 5 years of experience of ISO and 3 years of experience of our ISO 20700 checklist. So the basic materials are all the same at this point. There may be some updates, and one of the commitments I made to all of you as participants in courses that I facilitate is that I will keep you up to date on materials, hence keeping you on the mailing list to invite you to events like this. The major update that has been made without a change in content is the usability of the 2 Word checklist documents. Some of you that were early adopters of the ISO 20700 training would have realized that the Word documents were not very easy to use because the way that they were protected, we do want to protect the checklist side because that shouldn't vary, that's standard around the world, but where you put the notes in was very difficult to use. You couldn't use hyphens or carriage returns or any other type of editing. So that's been changed. It was actually one of the students that I was in one of my sessions that did that for one of them, and I said, well, if you do that one, I'll do the other one. So we do have those. I'll put them into the chat shortly, and then you can download those if you don't have them. The cases have been working well, so there's no major changes to the cases, and we're just continuing to work along with those. So no major updates at this point, but by the time we have our next meeting, which will be sometime in the fall, I'll have more news. And then probably by the spring, I'd expect that there'll be a whole ramp up of new materials that will be available to you. But as the standard hasn't changed, the fundamentals of the checklist won't be changing. What we're really doing is looking at how do we make these materials more accessible and easier for those of us who have already been trained in it to do that. And anyone jump in, shout, to unmute yourself and talk. We're a small enough group. We don't need to be formal here. So if you have any questions as I go along, just do jump in. So the LMS training availability, the very fact that the ISO 20700 training was put into a learning management system was because I was the first instructor trained for the CMC Global Institute. And the CMC Global Institute is the virtual version of all of the geographically based institutes that we have around the world. So it provides services anywhere in the world where there is no regional or geographically based institute. So it's 150, 160 some odd countries and regions, depending on how you define what a country is. And the only way to be able to provide those services was virtually, and because of time zones, it had to be virtually and on demand. So I did develop the LMS version, and the uptake has been really great. So I've really appreciated the support that I've received from around the world. So the light blue colors of the world here are where the program is developed by live instructors, either live virtually or live in room. So we have 30 countries around the world where institutes have been trained by ICMCI to deliver the program. The medium colored blue is the Global Institute. So those are all the countries where there are no existing institutes, and therefore the LMS version of this program is available through CMC Global Institute. More recently, institutes that also have trained live instructors have decided that it would be helpful to have the LMS version also available. So I signed a contract with Canada about a year and a half ago. So that's now available there. This program was relaunched on July 5th, so yesterday, and it's now available to CMCs, also to members of the Institute who are not yet CMCs, and then thirdly to anyone else in the country who would be interested in learning about the ISO 20700 standard. Perhaps they're a freelancer, or perhaps they've been a consultant for a while but want to learn more about the profession of consulting. Well, that's the way to do it. More recently, a few months ago, I signed a contract with IMC USA, so they are now also offering the LMS version in the same 3 versions. And most recently, CIMC, 20 countries in the Caribbean have signed on. So we're just about to launch that. Norma's on the line. Will be she and I are in regular work in terms of moving that out. And then I just got an email today that the Institute in Hong Kong would like to offer this version as well for people that are not CMC. So they're doing the live CMC training, but would like to use the LMS version for members and non-members. So it's moving out. I do appreciate the fact that all of you have been working with me on this program, and any referrals, as you already volunteered, Wes, are always most welcome. So update on content. There's 3 major areas here of content that have recently been added. So even those of you, Wayne and Aaron, I think probably the version of the LMS you took did not have this. So the main change is an introduction and change to the competency framework. So last year, ICMCI released a newer, updated version of the competency framework, and the LMS version had been, of course, working on the one that had been in existence 4 or 5 years ago when we started developing the program. So this is, to me, it's exciting because it doesn't change the fundamentals of our competency framework, but it puts it together in a much more interesting way in terms of how it pulls together. So the key element of enforcement, of course, is the business insight and attitude. So the client functional sectoral knowledge combined with the consulting business insight. So ISO 20700 tends to deal with the right side of this column, and the competencies of the individuals tend to deal with the left side of these columns as we go forward. The second one, you can look at the detail in the slides. I won't bother you with that amount of detail. The second one is around practice capabilities, which is engagement of management methodologies and consultant capabilities. So here the sides change. So ISO is more around the methodologies, and the competency framework is more around the capabilities of the individual. And then here's just some examples of the specific content. The third area is around behavior capabilities. And this is what one of the key differentiators to me in terms of the difference between the management consulting industry. So that's somebody that prints a business card and says, I am a consultant, and the management consulting profession, someone who believes in and uses tools like the ISO 20700 standard, but really understands that the development and the delivery of management consulting processes is more than selling time and solving problems. It really is how does one go about ensuring that we understand root cause issues? How do we contract that? How do we work with the client to deliver that? And then how do we ensure that we're closing the project appropriately? And then the fourth area is the code of ethics and professional conduct. And again, this is another very important area, especially with everything that's happening in the world with management consultants and consulting, sort of the big 10 organizations getting into trouble. PwC has had a huge issue with misuse of confidential information in Australia, leading to a Senate inquiry there. And it behooves us as CMCs and members of institutes to really understand and promote the fact that as a management consulting profession, we are accountable to our peers for the delivery of good projects and projects that aren't in conflict of interest. So that's another differentiator between the profession and the industry. And the common body of knowledge, which is developed in each country. I'm not sure the status of this in the US, but in Canada, there's just been a lot of effort recently going into updating the body of knowledge. And there's part of a chapter which they were kind enough to ask me to write in terms of demonstrating how and where ISO 20700 fits into the overall professional body of knowledge. So any questions or observations on competency framework? Perfect. This comes back to this next section comes back to feedback that I received from someone who took the program, who is based in Canada and is actually a leader in the development of and continuing enhancement of the delivery of the standard in Canada. And he made the point that that we really need to be clear with individuals that ISO 20700, because it's a services standard, is not certifiable, and it is a self-declaration standard. So we've added a section now in the module 3, which is for CMCs, which talks about that explicitly. So I inferred throughout the entire training program, but now it's actually quite explicit by saying that, you know, ISO 20700 they are guidelines, as you see here right on the title page of the standard, and therefore anyone can buy the standard from their National Standards Association and read it and comply with it, and then tell people that they are complying with the ISO 20700 standard. So what we're doing at ICMCI is developing the tools to help management consultants really do a better job of using that standard in a way that's going to be consistent around the world. So the bottom line hasn't changed in terms of what the standard is. It's this improving transparency and understanding, It's based on good practice, so it's the foundation level, and it's an easy to understand guidance document. So what we're doing with the checklist is giving you the tools that you need to implement the standard without having to read the standard, study the standard, figure out how to do it, develop the tools yourself, and then move forward. In addition to that, of course, you get the recognition on ISO 20700.org and through the certificate, which is sent out by certificate of participation, I must remember to say, which is sent out by ICMCI, and the logo, which says that you have the ability to work in compliance with that standard. Tim, I think this might be a good place to raise that point that you raised in your introduction around the use of the standard and how one actually goes about using it, because I think you made a really good point that once we go through the checklist training, or even once someone reads the standard, how one uses it really changes a lot in terms of actual practice. And I would be interested in getting other people's perceptions on this as well. I find myself that I don't walk into every client's office with the checklist in my hand and sit down with them and walk through it, because not every client is going to react well to that kind of thing. But what it has done is given me a much more organized approach, even more. I went through the competency framework and the training for CMC. We have the standard, the approach there, which is quite standardized, but somehow the ISO 20700 standard makes it, the checklist particularly really helps in terms of implementing that approach in terms of the contracting, the implementation, and the closing.
If I can add to that,
yeah.
Dwight, I'm interested in other folks, what kind of feedback they get from clients when they present this at the beginning of an engagement as well.
So anybody want to jump in on that?
Well, I haven't really found any resistance with clients, especially if they're going through the MAS program, because one of the things with the MAS program is there's already a standard contract. So a lot of things just refer to that. Or then I put in ethics, we refer to the uniform code. So there's a lot of stuff that can be pre-filled. So it can actually be quite fast. It's when you're working with a private client that it can become a bit more work, and what you can do from that, I found, is like with Zoom tools like Fathom, is we could have a general discussion, and then I could fill out a good part of it, and then we could review, this is the understanding, do we agree? And we can have that follow-up Zoom, and then that also makes best use for the client's time. And so I find as long as they don't see it as a tedious waste of time, and you're being mindful in that way, you won't have resistance. And it's actually, you actually value it, because then you can actually put that self-declaration stamp on your report, and we adhere to this. So they kind of like that element of it. It gives a bit more of that professional, credible touch, I think. So.
And I don't want to muddy the waters here too much, Dwight, but in Manitoba, what we did a number of years ago was we created a physical seal. And so anyone who was a CMC in good standing could pay the $65 and get your seal. And in the old days when we delivered paper proposals, we would stamp them like an engineer, an architect, etc. Well, a few years ago, we created electronic seals. And so based on the statements of interpretation, we created a process to make sure that the CMC was in good standing, vetted by Nationals records, but then the local registrar would review, and people that applied for it can use it. So I use that on all my proposals and reports and things. Makes a world of difference. This is another tool to Dwight's earlier comment about being part of a profession. I think it just really helps it. And Wes, you did a great job of explaining, I think, the practical nature and value that not only from your perspective as the provider of the service, but for the client as the recipient of the service, not to be onerous, but just to feel I'm buying this nebulous consulting stuff.
Mhm.
How do I get a better sense of the professionalism and care of the delivery?
Perfect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Other,
And I would like one of those seals for Alberta, so I think I'm gonna bring that up with our institute.
Everybody at the national board has all the information, and I've just been contacted by a couple of the national office folks to get some more background on the process. So like, I'm really hopeful this could be another separator for us, especially as smaller independents. If you're in a national firm, I get it. They have different standards of use, etc. But for smaller boutique independents, this could be something that's really powerful. So I'll keep you posted on that, Wes.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim.
Other comments or thoughts on this area?
I tried the formal thing one time. And then after that, you know, it's actually, for me, it's more than just a checklist. Checklists are important, but it's a mapping tool.
Mhm.
So the clients give you a contract, and then you look at the standard and say, well, this is there, this isn't there, this is somewhat there, and then you make a judgment call on what you want to push on, but you make sure that you protect both yourself and the client.
Mhm. Yeah. Any other comments? In my experience, working with clients, stating upfront that I work according to ISO 20700 standard seems to give them a sense of comfort. Often there's not even a question; it's kind of the nod and, oh, okay, that sounds good. But I agree with you. Bringing in the paper wouldn't work, but it does give me that. I like that picture, Al, that it's a roadmap of, you know, what's missing and what are the conversations I may need to have before we get to the contract. So we're working with the process, but it's in the background. Where I found that I had been lapsing was in the actual closing. So now at the closing, I do have a formal letter which goes to the client. I say it's part of ISO 20700. I say paid in full. This is what I delivered. This is what you'd asked for, and usually some comments on how to continue moving forward to so that the implementation doesn't sort of backtrack. And then I say, now we need a closing meeting to, you know, according to ISO 20700. So on the phone or Zoom, usually Zoom, we can we go through the letter and just make sure there's no questions, that they do agree it's closed off. And it's a great chance at that point to ask for the endorsement and referrals as well. So it all comes together. Okay, any other comments? I do have those 2 Word documents is in the are in the chat now. And yeah, Richard, thanks for your note here. We saw you leave and come back, so I'm glad you're able to get back on. Oh, is he gone again? Oh, there you are. Good. So back to share. The other section that we've added to this is also to module 3 is to give a bit more insight into policies. When we first started delivering ISO 20700, we had people sign an attestation saying that they would agree to purchase a copy of the standard. So we've backed off on that a little bit because we realized that the checklist does provide the information that we need. So we asked them to attest that they will familiarize themselves with the standard, which is kind of moves it over to the point of don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. But because the standard, I think the checklist really does give the people everything that they need to work in compliance with the standard. The only exception is around the policies. So in the standard, they have the 12 policies. They're not in depth, but they do give some really good information about the areas that you see on the screen: regulatory framework, stakeholder engagement, and so on. And it does give a starting point. So if one of those 12 areas is something that you feel is import in your project, then this gives you a resource to start with, and it gives you some sort of a starting point in terms of what do you need to cover off with the client around the policies. So we added a section just to say exactly that, and to really encourage people to purchase the standard. Different institutes have been trying to set up discounts so that if someone who's a CMC or through this program wants to buy the standard, they're able to do that. Unfortunately, the price is the standard bodies don't want to do a lot of negotiating. I think Canada got a 10% discount, which on $180 standard was $18. I suppose it's something, but you have to jump through hoops to get it. We have identified, however, one national standards body in Estonia, which prides us. The Estonian government prides itself on having gone paper-free, so they're very digital in everything they do. And they offer the standard for the equivalent of $40 Canadian, which is, I think it's around 29 euros. So if anybody's interested, I'm happy to send that link around. And there's absolutely nothing underhanded or illegal about it, because you're allowed to buy the standard from anywhere that you want to. It's just that the different bodies that are part of ISO for the delivery of ISO standards don't have, I guess, a standard in terms of what the pricing is. So if you want that link, let me know. So this I want to move back to open mic on this one again to get some feedback for you. In the working group discussion on update to the ISO 20700 training, we talked about module 2. So those of you who are CMCs did not get module 2. Module 2 is really an introduction to the profession and the difference between CMC and ISO 20700, and giving some of the information to the participant that would normally have accrue to a management consultant as they get the experience to become a CMC. And we talked there about topics that we should add to give some additional insights. So in module 2, I have a section on the future of consulting. So things that have changed, things that are changing in the profession, to give some insight. I have a section on the difference between the industry and the profession to help them understand that. But we're thinking that there would be some benefit to having some additional content in there. So I'd be very interested in your thoughts about what might be helpful. I'm thinking perhaps, and again, this is not training. This is not CMC level training or code of conduct training. This is all around just enough of an introduction to individuals who are taking this to encourage them to become CMCs and get the complete professional development training around those areas, but to really open people's eyes to the fact that there's some depth to these topics. So the ones that occur to me are AI, of course, and sustainability are the two, but I'd be really interested in your thoughts about areas that you think future colleagues might benefit from additional training. So this, again, just for clarity, this is like a 5 to 10 minute overview of areas that are of interest and importance to the management consulting profession.
I definitely think AI for sure is of interest. We've started using AI for certain applications. And it's just, I think if you're not using AI, you're going to be left in the dust.
Yeah. Yeah. I read a headline this morning. It said that AI won't replace jobs. AI won't steal your job. Someone who uses AI will steal your job. Any other thoughts, like from your specialty areas? Are there things that we might be that you think that people that are taking the ISO 20700 standard should have some insight into if they're not yet CMCs? In other words, they're relatively new to the profession.
Well, I think a lot of the courses that you already have, Dwight, those areas are probably quite beneficial as well. But AI, sustainability. Those are the big things, especially
Mhm.
Canada. When I was on the European call, they're moving heavy into the ESG and
Mhm.
looking at those outlooks. So
Mhm.
I think it's important to have that awareness piece at minimum.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think it is more around awareness. So for those that aren't aware, we do training on things like performance management and workforce planning, sort of getting human capability aligned to complexity of work and so on. Even organization design, Richard, you mentioned that's one of your specialties. I think an introduction to the fact that there is a science to organization design can be helpful to people. Okay, we won't beat a dead horse. I appreciate that. If you have any thoughts, always drop me an email. I'm always interested to hear that. Oh, thank you, Otto. Oh, I didn't see that you had joined. Otto, please introduce yourself. I'd really like people to meet you. Otto is the chair of CMC Global Institute. Perhaps he's somewhere where we can't turn on his microphone. So if he can, we'll get to hear from him later. So moving on. Oh gosh, we've only got 10 minutes left. So and we want some time for stories. So I think I'm finished with the formal stuff. Share screen. Yeah. Yes,
Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Otto.
Well, I'm using Zoom in the phone, so I'm sorry. I'm not that expert on the phone application.
No problem. We can hear you. I just at the very beginning of the call, we each introduced ourselves and our area of specialty. So thought it would be great if you could introduce yourself to the people that are here.
Sure. Well, my name is Oracuna. I'm located in Costa Rica in Central America. My expertise is, I would say, in strategy and operations with a very hefty bias into back office operation or process automation, which is an extension. I'm a Lean Six Sigma certified person by ASQ, and most of my career has been around organizational development, strategy a little bit, mostly operational strategy, and yes, transformation of processes in many industries. So currently, what I do beyond the volunteering that I do in GI is support other consultancies. That's I have a company in Estonia. So the cheap standard that mentioned Dwight is because we were finding out ways to provide it, and the only observation that I will do is that the file is encrypted, so you need to install a plugin in Acrobat, and you can only print it twice. The standard is configured so that you can only print it 2 times, basically. But anyway, that's me. And I'll thank you so much, Dwight, for having this wonderful meeting. I think it's very important that we practitioners of ISO 2700 share experiences in what we are doing, not only with ISO, but with many other ideas. I just already got 2 ideas of how to use ISO that I haven't thought of.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And that brings us to sharing stories time. This is the screen, I think, Otto, correct, for the Estonian site?
Yes, that is it.
Okay, perfect. So I'll put that in the chat. So because Otto has a business his business is actually incorporated in Estonia. That's how we became aware of this standard. So it's a good value for all of us. I'll put the link in the chat. So we wanted to move on.
Cost, Dwight, the
Yes.
cost is below 30 euros. It's 22 something,
Yeah, it
a
shows.
little bit depending.
Yeah, it shows 2040 right now. So I think it changes a bit.
Correct, depending on whether or not you pay VAT or not.
Yeah. Mhm.
The reason why we charge, for example, the GOPA Group 30 is because of all the administrative stuff, because they don't have, for big quantities, they don't have
Mhm.
processes to support buying individual standards
Mhm.
in large quantities. So there's a lot of admin work associated to that. So that's
Yeah.
why we charge 30.
Yeah, but for an individual purchase, it's relatively straightforward.
Correct.
Buying it from ISO, even I know my copy, I was only allowed to print it once, so they do have serious copyright protection on this to protect their intellectual property, which I think is fair. But I also think it's fair if one of their standards body sells it at a better price than another standards body. We're citizens of the world, so I don't have any ethical problem with purchasing it from the best retail price. Okay, any stories anyone would like to share about the use of ISO? We kind of got into that a little bit earlier because of Tim's comment, but I'd be very happy to hear any other thoughts about how people have used the standard or any other kinds of interesting experiences with customers.
I've got some thoughts on what we've been doing. We always sort of used a checklist before, and it ended up that we missed something or something wasn't accurate on our agreements. Since we took this course, everything is very specific and very clear, and we double check ourselves through the checklist. When we go into a prospect, we take the checklist with us, and when we explain to them how we work, is we use a checklist to make sure everything's accurate on the checklist as well as it transfers to the proposal. One of the things we also do too is the code of ethics. I've got a laminated code of ethics, IMC. One of my line items on my agreement is that the prospect has read and understands my code of ethics. Okay, because I think that's important, and that brings value to ourselves. Since Erin took the course, she's now doing checklists for everything we do. We're doing a LinkedIn post. She says this, double check, spell check, right? Mm-hmm. So it sort of sparked different things, because when you think about it, we do checklists all the time. You go to the grocery store, you're checking out eggs, right? So we're always doing it, but whether you're a new consultant or an older consultant, we all make mistakes, and this is just one way we can try to alleviate those mistakes. And it's been a benefit for us. Our customers like it. I want to thank you, Dwight, for doing this, because it makes a difference in our business.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you very much. We've got time for one last story if anybody else wants to share something.
So let me just jump in quickly about AI. And once I figure out what that is, maybe I'll be better off. So because I'm going through a PhD program right now, I'll just let you guys know that there is a massive debate in academia about what you can and can't do with whatever you call AI. Papers are being submitted that were written by ChatGPT. Those people are being expelled. Where's attribution? Where's the knowledge? Who's doing what? So it's not a panacea. And I don't know, the debate is going to go on for some time. Maybe we'll be the beneficiaries of some good discussion in October, Dwight. That's a good forum, but there's more to be written on this story yet.
Yeah, I'm one of those that's been involved in it because of my work in human capability. I have an understanding of what AI can and cannot do. I just dropped my white paper into the chat if anybody's interested in it. So it really bothers me, all of the hype in the media, because they're coming at it in the entirely wrong way. The issue before us isn't tools that are getting better and faster and stronger. It's the ethics of and societal reaction to how we're going to use those in the most appropriate ways. And there does need to be governance, regulation, oversight. But most importantly, those of us in the profession need to use these things in ethical ways, and ensure that we're taking a leadership role in our communities to help reinforce that importance. Ethics is a major problem. The big downfall of PwC in Australia, for example, was that their accounting side was taking information and passing it to the consulting side, and the consulting side was using that to get business, which is totally unethical, but it was very lucrative. So we need to do a better job in society of understanding what's ethical. My closing thought on that, you got me on my high horses, you can tell. I was reading online, it was the top 10 money saving hacks, and as you read through them, 5 of them are actually illegal. Drive by your nearest Hampton Inn, and instead of buying breakfast at McDonald's, just walk in, help yourself to the open bar, because nobody will challenge you. So yeah, it'll save you breakfast money, but you're stealing food from that establishment, and others were along those lines. Bring your empty McDonald's cup next time you go to McDonald's, and you can get a free refill, because that kind of stuff is just unethical, and yet it seems to be accepted as something that people can or should do. So we got some work in our communities and our societies to do on that.
And boy,
Yes.
I just want to mention about the AI real quick. IMC DFW has a Zoom on the 21st of July for AI. I try to join in all I can with that, because everybody has a different point of view. What you can and can't do with AI. It's new to most of us, so new to most of us, we just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
So
learning about it is a start. So James, send me that link, or Wayne, if you have it, send me that link. And when I do the follow-up, I'll send a follow-up to all of the grads with a link to this video, which we'll put on YouTube, and I'll promote that in the email, because I think that would be a great event for people to attend.
Will do. I appreciate that. But we don't use AI. I mean, we play with it a little bit, but if you know how I speak and I use AI, you're no, that's not him. You know what I mean? It's just how we are. It's something fun to play with, but we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. It can, I find, for professionals, it can save time and effort, in doing outlines and doing regular things. It's just we can't let it pretend. We can't pretend that it's doing our work, because it's not new information. Our job is to use our diagnostic capability to come up with new ways of doing things and providing insights that haven't been thought of before. AI can at this point only do stuff that's already been thought of, and more than that, it's already more than a year old by the time it can feed that back to you. So this has been extremely interesting. I really appreciate it. I will be following up by email. At the end of the PDF that I sent to you, there's some contact information for me. Feel free to follow up at any time if you have any questions or thoughts or further information that you'd like to share with others in the graduate ceremony. I can pass it on. Okay. I kept
Dwight.
2 minutes over. Sorry about that, but thank you very
Nice
much for
meeting
your
you all.
attendance. Take care. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Good job, Dwight.
Thank you. Take care all.